Hey guys, and welcome to the 55th episode of EduAllStars. My name is Todd Nesloni. You can find me on Twitter at TechNinjaTodd. My co-host today is...
And my name is Chris Kessler. You can find me on Twitter at IamKessler. We are back from a month hiatus. I know that some of you guys probably have listened to episodes throughout the month, but we had recorded those in early June, and then kind of went on cruises and went to ISTE and went to all these different places while just kind of pushing content out to you guys so you would have fresh stuff all month long. So we're back live on July 6th, and we just want to welcome everyone back.
And we want to say, too, Keegan is still part of the show, but he is not here again. He is camping with his family right now. So hopefully Keegan will be back with us next week. But we wish him well with camping. I saw he had some drama setting up a tent. Got to give him some hard time about that on the show.
See, he graduated. He probably moved out to California, is living in some VW van by the beach. Who knows?
Well, and we would also like to say this episode of EduAllStars is sponsored by Sophia. Sophia is all about transforming education through a vibrant online community. You can check them out at sophia.org. It's SOPHIA. They've got tons of customizable lessons that they've already got on there, about 37,000 videos created by teachers for teachers. You can learn as well as use them for your students to learn. I've used Sophia to flip my classroom, and that was a resource I couldn't have done it without. And they also offer some great free certifications. You can get Flip Class certified, iPad certified, Chromebook certified, and Virtual Classroom certified for free through Sophia and Capella University. So it's an awesome platform, so definitely go and check them out. And we are grateful to have them sponsoring the show this month. We would also like to encourage you, as you listen live or as you listen to the recording, to tweet out things that you hear using the EduAllStars hashtag. We love seeing the conversation and love hearing about the things that stick out to you. We are so excited to have our guest this week back for our first in July. Jessica Allen is currently the Director of Technology at Santiago College, a K-12 school in Santiago, Chile. And so we are so excited to have our second international guest. We had Victoria Olsen from Canada, and now we have one from South America. So thank you, Jessica, for coming on with us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So, Jessica, the way we always like to start is just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into education.
How much time do I have to talk about all this?
Just start talking. We'll stop you.
Yeah, so I was originally, well, I'm obviously from the United States based on my accent, but I taught in Arizona, and I was in northern Arizona in the Native American reservation for a little while. And while I was there, I decided I need to expand my horizons. So I went to international teaching, and I taught in England for a number of years. And then I met my husband over there, who happens to be from California, so he's not a Brit. But we got married and moved to Singapore, and then we were there for 5 years, so I got to experience the eastern half of the world. And then while we were there, we decided, we wanted to give our kids the gift of a second language, so we decided to move down to South America. And Chile happened to have a job in the curriculum that I teach, so I'm IB trained, International Baccalaureate. And while I was there, I've been carrying around my interest of technology that whole time, and finally it sort of all came together at Santiago College, where I get to be part of curriculum and technology, which are my two passions, and now I put them together for the whole school.
Now, I know it's called Santiago College, but it's not a college, right?
No, it's not a college. I should make that really clear. That's right. It's kindergarten through 12th grade. So the word college in Spanish just means school. Colegio is a school, and then universidad is a university. So I am not at a university.
So one of the questions I always like to ask, because I'm in a grad school program right now, I graduate in December, is like, when did you know you were ready to kind of step outside the classroom and step out from being a teacher and do something different?
That's a really good question, isn't it? Well, when I was in Native American, with the Native Americans in Arizona, I was classroom teacher. And when I first went to England, I was also a classroom teacher. When I transitioned over to Singapore, that's when I moved from classroom to, I guess you would call it admin, but it was really curriculum. And I think the reason that I felt ready was I was the person that when everyone needed an idea or they wanted to implement something but they weren't really sure how to put all the pieces together, I seemed to just have that ability to see the bigger picture, to put the puzzle pieces all together. I could do this part of the curriculum with the technology, with this and with that, and it dawned on me pretty quickly that not everybody has that ability. And so that's when I decided, oh, I'm going to try to pursue curriculum. So once I stepped into curriculum and I started teaching side by side with the teachers, then I said, I think I'm onto something here for me. So I still miss the kids, but I get to do team teaching, so it's still there. It's right in my reach. So I haven't left the classroom. I just do it in a different way.
Cool.
Well, I know you talked a little bit about your travels around the world, and obviously, I mean, many of our viewers are United States citizens, and
Sure.
many of them have always taught in the United States and never even had the idea of teaching overseas. When did that decision come apart on your end to actually step out of the United States and go teach somewhere else?
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting, situation. I think I've always had it in me. I went to university in the East Coast in northern Pennsylvania, and I never really felt like it clicked. So pretty quickly I moved to the West Coast, and I felt like I still didn't quite click. So I think, after a couple of years in northern Arizona, I just decided this doesn't feel like me either, and so I started pursuing and trying to find out, well, what are the other options? Because this didn't feel right in the East, it didn't feel right in the West Coast, so what else can I do? And I found the DoD School. I don't know if you know what they are. They're Department of Defense, which was my first idea about going into international teaching, but it was still a little too controlled. It was so mandated. You had to be part of the Army, and you had to follow the Army system, and I wasn't really interested in that. And I looked up, and there are two groups. They're called International School Services or Search Associates, and they have big fairs, and you can go there. And if you're willing to take the leap and you feel like, I want to know what it's like in other parts of the world, which is kind of what was always itching at me. I always wanted to travel. I went to one of the fairs, and I just happened to get a job. So it just worked out. So it was meant to be, I think.
Cool. So this next question may seem like a setup question. It wasn't intended. It wasn't written that way. So what do you think the biggest difference is like between an American education and maybe other places around the world?
All right. Well, I'm going to couch this with, remember that I'm an international baccalaureate trained person. So it's a very specialized curriculum that particularly looks at trying to make internationally minded people. Okay, that's like the basis of the whole curriculum. So with that in mind, and I believe to the bottom of my heart, it's a great curriculum. So I think the biggest difference is all of the schools I've worked at have been this kind of school with this kind of curriculum. So where in America you might be teaching Common Core, for example, even with Common Core, you would still make sure that you reach out and break down the walls of your classrooms and find the different perspectives of all the different people in the world. So all of my international schools have been doing that for a very, very long time because of this curriculum that has always had it embedded. So where everyone in educational technology is now starting to reach out through Skype, through Twitter, to get the international perspective, I've been doing that since I started for the last 14 years outside of the United States. So I think that's probably the biggest difference. And with that, I mean, when I was in Singapore, we had 18 different nationalities in one classroom. So everyone who's talking about English as a second language, I've been living that ever since I left. So that's probably the biggest difference. It is always in my face. It is always there. It's always something that is a challenge that we have to work with.
Cool.
Now, how many different languages do you speak?
I only speak the two, and I would venture to say that I wouldn't say my Spanish is fantastic. It's like, average, medium average. But I hear lots of different languages, especially when we were in Singapore. It was very, very international.
But you were telling me this week at ISTE that your kids, though, are completely fluent in both English and Chilean, right?
Absolutely. And when you say Chilean, you're absolutely right, because Chilean Spanish is very different than the other Spanishes. Very different. So they speak slang, and they talk to everyone with all the extra Chilean words that only Chileans know.
Just as a side note, I was rooting for Chile against Brazil the other day. What a heartbreaker.
It was such a heartbreaker.
Oh,
I have to tell you,
gosh.
in my heart, I'm Chilean. I'm Chilena, because even at ISTE, I was with a lady who is Chilena, and we were there. We were trying to find people with streaming video to try and sneak on the side and watch it as we were cheering on during conference meetings. It was a heartbreaker.
Yeah,
oh, man. So just your current position is that of a director of technology.
Sure.
What would you say is probably the biggest challenge that you have to face in your current position?
Well, for me, obviously, language is a huge challenge. But if we put that aside, if you're just talking education and curriculum, I think the biggest thing is trying to bring those two areas together, because I am equal with the director of computers, basically, who is in charge of all the hardware, and I'm in charge of all of the software. So there's a lot of communication that has to happen between the two of us, and often if we're out of step, then the teachers and everyone in the school will feel that. So he'll make a decision, and he didn't contact me, and so we have to fix the training of something, for example, or the implementation, or vice versa. I try to implement something and our hardware hasn't been ready, or I haven't communicated with him. So for me, at that level, that's the hardest.
So you've done some work with maker spaces before. We haven't really talked much about. I don't think we ever talked about that. Have we talked about that? Yeah. So I want you to kind of talk about so just for the viewers or excuse me, the listeners who may not know what it is, just talk a little bit about that, how it came onto your radar, like what you do with that.
Super. Yeah. So maker spaces, I think they've been around for quite a long time. They've been called many, many different things, and some would argue that this is the pendulum swinging back from industrial arts classes from the 70s all the way back around till now. It's a little bit different because the idea of maker spaces is more than just making and building things that are exactly the same and every kid has to do the same. Instead, it's empowering kids to make and design and investigate using their hands, using materials. It could be electric circuits, it could be sewing, it could be Play-Doh, it could be wood, it could be many things, as a way to try and do problem-based learning that's passion-based. And through all of that passion in building, you're embedding all of the curriculum contents that they need to address along the way. So I love it. And the particular thing of a makerspace is designating a space or an area either in your school or in your community where kids can go and have the freedom to do the explorations that they're really interested in. And it's open. There's a lot of materials that are out, and they just start to explore. They want to make a robot. They go over and start digging around in the robot bin and try to find some stuff about robots, and then they want to know more about it and build a robot. Or maybe they want to know about circuits, so they start playing around with batteries and light bulbs, and pretty soon they've made some kind of a light board with a game and a buzzer, and who knows what they do. So, and I would say probably the biggest push lately has been, I don't know if you know Kane's Arcade. That sort of started a big push into the Global Cardboard Project, which is definitely something that makerspaces adopt. And then you have Sylvia Martinez and Gary Steger, who have been talking about Invent to Learn, this book that they wrote, which I think is amazing. And that's what we base our makerspace on. And so they're pushing this idea of kids making, kids being involved. So it got on my radar because of this book I read, and also I did Stanford Design School class online and MOOC a year and a half ago. So that really got me excited about design. I had design thinking background for a while, so it put it all together into the education context.
Is there like an authority source or resource out there that you would kind of like steer someone to if they were interested in makerspaces? Where
Absolutely. Yeah, Sylvia Martinez and Gary Steger for sure.
Okay.
So in Amazon.com, if you type in Invent to Learn, there's a website you can go to, but that's the name of the book. Like if you're looking for I have no idea where to start, that's the book you go to.
Okay,
it's like,
perfect.
Here's what you do. It's really outlined very step by step. It's great.
Awesome.
So, Jessica, you're also pretty active on social media, and you are what we would call a connected educator. You're active on Twitter, on Instagram. When did you decide to start connecting professionally with others via social media, and what has that kind of done for your career?
Sure, that's an excellent question. So I went to the ISTE conference in 2010 maybe? I don't know, 2011, whenever it was in Philly. And right before I went to the ISTE conference, I started looking around and getting prepared for it. I had known about ISTE for a while, but I started to get prepared, and I joined the ISTE Ning for beginners, newbies. And there it said about join Twitter, get ready for the conference. Somebody had posted things you should do before ISTE. I joined then. And in that conference, I saw all of the reasons why I needed to be using it. So from then on, from 2011 on, I've been quite active in using Twitter and Instagram, trying to connect and try to get people to see what we're doing down in South America. So I think for me, the biggest thing it's done is it's opened me up to many colleagues that have great ideas, and I've been able to take those ideas and transform them into my context because it's very specific. It's Spanish, it's Latin America, it's international schools, but I can still take all those ideas and put them as I need in my context, which has been great.
So ISTE 2014 was just last week, and you and Todd were both there. Yeah. How do you see social media playing a part at like how you interact with at a conference or at any conference, not just at ISTE?
Sure. Well, I think it does two things. First of all, it gives you a voice if you're someone who's shy. I'm actually a really, really shy person. I know it doesn't seem like that, but I'm a really shy person. And if you ask Todd, he'll tell you. I just basically go up to people and say, please introduce me to somebody. I just don't have it in me to do it myself, you know. And I think Twitter allows me to do that. I can say hi to people. I can talk to them ahead of time in a safe way so that by the time I see them face to face, I've built up enough rapport with them that it doesn't feel so strained, you know, which is what I'm always afraid of. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, when you're in the conference, so if I use Twitter to meet people at the conference, the other thing that happens is while I'm there, I'm trading Twitter names with people I don't know, and all of a sudden after the conference, I've got this whole other context, this whole other contact. Now I've met hundreds more people from Makerspaces, and I can't wait to talk to them and find out, what are you doing, what can I take, what can I embed in my contacts, what can I share out. So it allows me to make new contacts and then also format to sort of fuse or to strengthen the contacts that I do have.
Well, you know, and I would say too that it's funny because it's like when you go to conferences now, especially like ISTE, it's like running in and having a family reunion of these people who all the relationships have been online, but it's like even Jessica and I met on Twitter, and then we met at ISTE last year and continued conversing over the year, and then when we saw each other at ISTE this year, it's like, oh, old friends! And it was like no time had passed, and those are the kind of things that would not happen at a conference if you weren't connected. I mean, I think of how I used to attend conferences, and I've said this before, I think, on the show, and I just sit in the back row, and you go to sessions, and you take notes, and you leave, and you go to the next session. And now conferences, that's still a part of it. Attending sessions is still a part to me, but now it's like connecting with those other people is so much more valuable at times than even some of the sessions.
Well, I have a funny anecdote just to explain the difference. So I said I'm an IB educator, and so I went to an IB conference, and there, the first thing I did, I said, what's the hashtag for this conference? What's the hashtag for this session? Of course, there wasn't one, so I make one. Yeah, IB, whatever it was. And I'm tweeting, and I'm looking, and I go around, and I'm talking to people. Who else is on Twitter? I want to talk with you. I'm trying to form this back channel, trying to carry on this conversation in between all these different sessions. No one. And so I was sort of like, this conference just doesn't seem to have the oomph that all the other conferences have when I have that social media in my hands and I can continue the conversation outside of the walls that we're in. And I think that's the thing. You know, it's really, it lets the conversation keep going, so I have time to think and implement and then go, wait a second, I need a little more help with this idea. And I have those people I can keep talking with.
I want to just add to that too. Like I've been to the CAST conference, which is a Texas Science Conference every year, massive conference. And the last couple of years, I mean, I'm on Twitter and I'm thinking, all right, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to meet all these middle school science teachers and connect with them. And it's like crickets on Twitter. I just can't believe it. And then this week, I'm actually going out to Vegas for a Teachers Pay Teachers conference, and the media has changed. So these teachers are not on Twitter, but they're all on Instagram. So they're talking about the hashtag is TPT Vegas 14. So I'm out on Twitter trying to find this thing. I'm like, there's no one tweeting about this. And sure enough, they're all like these thousands of pictures on Instagram. So they have the whole new medium that I don't really, I mean, I have an Instagram account. I don't really know much about it. So it's just like the channels change depending on you know, who's there. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Huh. That'd be fun. I have to say, ISTE just basically is Twitter. I do have an Instagram account. I do share my stuff on Instagram, like the work of our students, especially Makerspace, because they're always building and it's impossible to explain in words. So I'm constantly taking photos and putting it on Instagram, but I've never used it at a conference. Oh, well, that'd be fun to find out.
Yeah. All right, Todd, you're up.
Oh, it's me. I'm sorry.
Do you want me to keep going?
So what would you say is probably the biggest thing that you've learned in the last year?
Biggest thing that I've learned? Well, that's a good question. I would say probably for my Makerspaces. So I've been really pushing myself to learn something new. I've learned tons about Makey and Arduino and sort of all of that more technical side of the Makey just to keep ahead. We're getting a 3D printer, so I've been really studying up on 3D printing, what's it all about, how do I use SketchUp, how do I get SketchUp files to a 3D printer. So that's sort of been overwhelming my time outside of my actual job. I do that on the side and I study all that stuff as well. So I would say that.
Awesome.
What was I going to ask? I was going to ask question that wasn't related, wasn't on our sheet. See, that's what happens when you don't write it down. So anyway, let's just go back to the script.
But I like the improv. It was funny.
I know. I'll think about it. About some books or blogs that you could recommend to anyone, whether it be let's stick with education. Anything in education that you're reading recently or that interests you?
Yeah, but I'm going to sound like a broken record because it's invent to learn. I sound like I'm totally focused on one thing. I'm not. I would say the other thing that I have been reading, I did a lot with Drive and Change and Switch. So I don't know if you know Switch by the Heath Brothers, and then Drive, obviously, Dick Pink. But so just sort of changing and trying, because obviously the other side of my job, besides this makerspace that I'm going on and on about, is we do side-by-side teaching with our teachers. I have a whole iPad pilot. I teach teachers how to implement iPads in classrooms. So for me, the biggest thing is coaching and how to help people embrace change without being so scared that they're frozen. So for me, I was really investigating, before the makerspace, I was investigating how to get change in a non-threatening way. That's what I was trying to find out about. So those would be the two books. Switch, I think, is great.
Do you see, like, you've heard of Genius Hour, 20% time, I'm sure. Like, do you see Makerspace and Genius Hour kind of like working maybe in the same realm or not? Are they, I mean, I know that one's kind of more engineering focused and one is kind of more passion driven, I guess, but...
I actually think that one is a subset of the other. So makerspaces can be engineering driven, but they don't have to be. And I think that's a misunderstanding about makerspaces. Okay. I think the thing with makerspaces is they start, my experience has been that they start as craft and move into engineering, but they always keep the craft part. And I think for us at my school, we have a Genius Hour in grade 5, so it's the end of our elementary, and the kids have to present a project at the end called the exhibition. And so we are sort of dovetailing exhibition and Genius Hour into this sort of the same thing. It's sort of passion-based, and they're doing it in my makerspace. So their Genius Hour is happening in makerspace at my school. So it sort of all fits together, because in the end, it's student-driven. It has to do with passion. It has to do with investigation. It has to be student-centered. So they all help one another out.
I remembered what I was going to ask you. On your Twitter profile, you mentioned something. You're I think it's a PYPer or something like that. What is that?
Yeah, that's this International Baccalaureate program. It's the elementary subset of the International Baccalaureate, the primary years program.
Okay, cool.
So, do you have one of those moments in your career, Jessica, when you look back on the work that you've done with kids or with adults, one of those interactions that'll stick with you forever, where it's the reason you're in education kind of thing?
Are you talking about sort of like how you felt with your math exhibition that you had recently? Like that moment. Yeah. Well, I would say pretty recently we had some people trying out our makerspace. So this makerspace, and I hate to keep like beating a dead horse here, but I don't know that it is coming across. So Chile is a very, very conservative place. It's very conservative, and they don't do anything fast. They really take their time in making change. And my headmistress, who's been unbelievably supportive, I go with this crazy idea almost 2 years ago and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And she's like, well, look, you've got a space next to your office. Yeah, do it. Here you go. Here's a little tiny bit of money. I don't know what you're doing, but whatever. Good luck. I hope it works out. And lets me have the freedom to make this thing. And it's turned into this amazing moment. And I think for me the most amazing moment was I had some English teachers come and try to use the makerspace in their curriculum. And remember, they're only at the craft part. So they were just basically exploring craft. But they were bringing these big kids, 10th and 12th graders, into our makerspace and trying to get them to make a connection with building and their book that they were recently reading, a novel. And these kids had to express their understanding through a thing, a physical product, using the makerspace. As the kids were leaving, these are big kids who have been basically schooled, as in like they've been institutionalized to, I have to take lots of tests and I don't need to be creative. As they were leaving the makerspace, I hear them talking between themselves, and they turn to the teacher and they go, hey, miss, can we please come back here? That was the best time we've had in the last 4 years of teaching, of school. So, I mean, for them to feel awakened at the very end of their time in school, I think it shows that it really matters what we're trying to do. And this whole idea of giving the time for the kids to pick something that they're really passionate about and to be creative, I think it's so necessary and it's missing. And when we give it to them, they connect. And all of a sudden, those kids came alive, and the teacher came to me afterwards. She said, thank you so much, Jessica. I was feeling beat down. I was feeling absolutely burnt out. And here are these kids, they've come to me and said, we can't wait for tomorrow to come back to your class. And it was like the spark just came back to her teaching, to their learning, and it was amazing. So from there, I just got this unbelievable bug. I had to keep going. Now I make everyone crazy. I talk about makerspaces all the time, and they're telling me to be quiet.
That's awesome.
I just got the passion inside me.
Todd, I just got that feeling again that we get after you talk to these interviewees, and you're just so excited when you get off the call. I haven't really thought about school for the last month, to be honest. It's like I kind of closed that door, and just summer started and everything, and now I'm like, all right, let's get back, let's get it.
Well, and we're actually in my new position as principal, we have some open space at my school, and so we have already talked, and I already have been explaining the idea. I need to get that book now, though. About makerspaces, and we have a very large space that we are building into a makerspace. We sent out a big announcement to our teachers actually last week to said, hey, this space is going to be in our school. Let's start filling it up now. Start thinking of ideas you want to implement it, because we want our kids to create and build and play and just have a space where they can just do whatever they want.
Great. And I have to tell you, you need to talk with me afterwards. I won't keep going because I know that's not what this is all about, but there is some really important stuff about the way that you can design a room to make it absolutely useful and invite learning in so many ways, and I can tell you all about that, so let me know.
And I see we've got Michael Donnelly watching the show and tweeting live, and he's going to be one of my new teachers, and so he said he said, you have me excited about makerspaces. I saw the tweet. So I'm glad that he's listening too, because he can help me with this makerspace.
That's
right. I'm happy too. He won't lose his job just yet then.
Not yet.
You'll keep him through Christmas at least.
That's the goal right now. He's going to laugh when he hears this. Oh, man.
Yeah. Hey, so thinking back to the beginning of your career and what you know now, I'm trying to get you to talk about. Give your former self some advice from your current self. What would you tell yourself as you're just getting started in teaching that you actually know now?
I would say not to be afraid to go out on the edge and be creative and push the boundaries. I kept myself very much inside the boundaries of what I was given to do inside the curriculum, and I was told that was how I had to do it. And it didn't take me long. I left the United States because I couldn't follow that rule, but it took me a little while, and I wish I would have just had more confidence to say, no, I know what good learning is, and I know what kids need to be great learners, and I wish I would have followed through with it a little faster. I did it eventually, and that's why I'm here now. That took me a while to pick up on it.
So, Jessica, if people that you worked with, or people that knew you, had to describe you in 3 words, what are 3 words that you hope they would use?
I'm positive the word tenacious would come out. Once I get an idea and I'm passionate for something, I don't stop. I'd say passionate probably and enthusiastic.
Awesome.
Speaking of passions, we always kind of end on this question. What's something you can't say makerspace?
I know, I can't say it. I thought you were going to tell me. All right, I'm ready.
What's something you're really passionate about in education right now?
You know what? I'm really passionate about teachers connecting with other teachers.
Yeah,
really,
cool.
More than anything else, because I think it's going to be the one thing that changes our system. The teachers are finally going to realize that we are excellent professionals, and if we stick together and help each other out, we will change exactly what we want education to become. We will make it happen.
Love it. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for coming on with us today. We really appreciate you giving us some time and us to chat with you. Where can people find you online?
Well, I'm at Jessie Vaz, JESSIEVAZ 12 at Twitter. Same one for Instagram, the same username for Instagram. And I also have a blog. You go to my Twitter page, you'll see my blog link. You can find me on the blog, and that's where I talk about all the things I'm trying to figure out, all the things I'm trying to do. If I'm ever in a course, I always post all the things that I'm doing in my course as well. So that's where you can find me.
Well, and we wanted to thank our listeners and viewers as well. You can find us on Twitter at EduAllStarsHQ, and also by following the hashtag EduAllStars. You can catch this episode, in addition to the other 54, on EduAllStars.com/podcast. And you can also find us on iTunes by searching out EduAllStars with one word, no spaces.
And then next Sunday on July 13th, we're going to have Ginger Lumen at 8 p.m. Central. You don't want to miss that.
And we'd also, in closing, would like to thank our sponsor, Sophia. Again, it's SOPHIA.org for sponsoring this episode, and actually this month's episode of EduAllStars. They're a great platform, and we hope you check them out and give them a tweet shout-out as well. And again, thank you, Jessica. We are so glad to have you on, and we will keep chatting with you online.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jessica.